You're listening to Agile Ideas, the podcast, hosted by Fatimah Abbouchi. For anyone listening out there not having a good day, please know there is help out there. This afternoon's panel, or morning or evening, depending where you are logged in from around the world, is all about project management, practical insights from experts in the project management field, both the academic field as well as the practitioner fields as well. So I'm going to do a quick introduction for our four guest speakers, and then we'll get straight into it. If you have any questions throughout the session, please put them into the Q&A and or the chat, and we'll try to get to all of them as well. So first up, and apologies, my camera was off. First up, we have Julie, who some of you have met. She's been my co-MC today, but Julie actually holds over 25 years of portfolio program and project experience across many industries. With strong leadership and an engaging approach, she has a relationship-focused style, building high-performing teams. She's very active in mentoring and is passionate about the development of project management communities. So thank you and welcome, Julie.
Thank you very much, Fatimah. Lovely to be here.
Amazing. And then we have Mark. Mark is the head of PMO Asia Pacific East at a global law firm, Herbert Smith Freehills in Sydney. His hands-on experience in various industries has provided him with a well-rounded perspective on project management strategies that deliver tangible results. This year, Mark was invited and is honoured to be part of the PMO Global Award Judging Committee of 2023 by the PMO Global Alliance. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Fatimah. Thanks for having me on the panel.
You're welcome. Dave. Dave is an internationally experienced PMO project and program manager with expertise in developing and leading functional project improvement and PMO initiatives, managing governance and assurance functions across a range of industries and sectors. Welcome, Dave.
Welcome all. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And Vladimir. Vladimir is currently Associate Professor at the School of Culture and Society for Aarhus University in Denmark. He actually resides in New Zealand day to day. His current research interests include socio-economic impacts and governance of non-renewable resource extraction in the Arctic, Latin America, and South Pacific regions. Welcome, Vladimir, to the show.
Thank you, Fatimah. Thanks, everybody.
I am very happy to have you all here. We've got a lot of things to cover off, and I'm keen to get straight into it. One of the first things I just wanted to probably kick us off with is thinking about the fact that there is a lot, we've been talking a lot today in a lot of our sessions on how technology is changing the game and changing things, and the advancements of technology, whether it's AI or other, is really significantly impacting our projects and our ability to deliver projects, both positively and some aspects maybe negatively. I just wanted to go around the room and just get a minute from each of you on what are you seeing in your space around technology and how that's either impacting or changing your role or your environment. So I might start with you, Mark.
Look, from my perspective, I think it's all positive, to be honest. I mean, I love teams. I love the ability to centralize information, the ability for teams to collaborate and communicate in that environment. It's been really helpful, and it's just giving that structure to projects has really helped with one, to be successful, two, teams to communicate, collaborate better, version control of documents, all that kind of stuff. It's fantastic, and I think it takes a lot of work from a project manager to push sometimes the team into those environments, to get things out of email into those collaborative environments, but it really helps the project to be successful. So that element of technologies has been really great.
Thank you, Mark. David?
Yeah, I think I'd echo what Mark was saying there. It's been there's a bit of a breakthrough, as we see in the last 18 months or so, into sort of more technology focused and IT focused enhancements towards project management. So a lot of integration between different types of software. So as probably a few years ago where we would have had 5 or 6 tools that meant us having to remember logins and things like that to help us underway and deliver the project. The concatenation down, all that integration of those tools into a single tool suite, such as like Microsoft Teams, that enables just a one-stop shop for projects to be managed and teams to be communicated with going forward. But also when we see AI coming to the fore as well, and what's coming through with ChatGPT, seeing a lot of things on LinkedIn and other forums and discussion points really about how that's driving, I suppose, a more automated outcome of project management.
Thank you, Dave. Julie?
I'm going to be the controversial one and say not necessarily all positive. Someone has to do that.
Yes.
From my perspective, whilst the technology is good, from the humanistic side, haven't necessarily all caught up with it. I see different, and it's not even necessarily a generational thing. So it's not that target about, it's something that only the young kids can do. One of the things that I like to say to when a paper's put in front of me or a report is, well, what's the business rules behind that? Because then I know that a person has been in there and given that assurance. So I think that the overlay of AI, so for example, we have a really great dashboard that sits on Power BI and you go, fabulous. But now an executive's seen that and there's the data in that hasn't been qualified or quantified, and it could open up another can of worms. So I believe it's going in the right direction. Don't think we're quite just yet there to go, it's tipped over and go, it's all good. I think we still have to catch up a bit.
We've definitely got to put some guardrails around it and be alert. No, thank you. And Vladimir, how about from your perspective, with an academic lens, what are you seeing?
So it's early days for us. My university is having a conversation at the higher levels, the management, to see, and the academic council to see how we should approach things like ChatGPT. In the meantime, we are experimenting. So I've already let my students start using ChatGPT in my project management class, with the proviso that they don't cheat, that they don't let the program or the AI write their prose. So that's in relation to ChatGPT, but in relation to, say, my projects that are research projects that have to do with, mostly humanities, places in the developing countries. I think it's great that we are able now, especially since COVID, to communicate with the communities that we are dealing with. So, one of my projects is in Central America. And before COVID, before the onset of, say, Zoom, we did not have much communication online, except for emails, which they were not very keen on. But they are much more adept at using Zoom or WhatsApp. WhatsApp is one of the main tools that we use to communicate with people in rural areas in Central America. And through WhatsApp, we use, so much. We achieve so much. So, there's been good, neutral things and some advances.
It's interesting you mentioned adaptability. I was going to go there actually next. So I'm keen to continue the adaptability path. So I'm keen to sort of, obviously we know that communications is one of the biggest things we've had to adapt, and with working with hybrid teams and with the last couple of years of events. I'm keen to hear from all of you. If anyone wants to start off by sharing an example of maybe a project that was mid-flight that then required significant adaptability and how your team successfully navigated that unforeseen change or challenge. So is there someone wants to kick us off with an example of something that maybe there's a massive pivot midway through a project that perhaps someone wants to share?
Yeah, I'll go. So I'll probably say the biggest change was for us for me was during COVID. I was working for a utility company here in Australia that was the major program was bushfire mitigation. So out of the Royal Commission from 2009 into the big Black Saturday bushfires. And it was a government-sponsored program. So very much the pressure's always been on with that program to get the utility and the substations that support that the transmission lines, making sure that they're bushfire ready. So yeah, COVID dropped as we'd probably in tranche 2 of the 3 tranches for that project. Or that program, and we're talking about like a $500 million program of work, so a fairly substantial program. 45 substations that needed to be upgraded. The sort of business continuity plan that had to be put in place to keep that going, because it was such a focus and from the media as well as people out on the streets that was very tangible and very, quite huge. So yeah, trying to keep that project running, literally, one day you're out on site, the next day you're in your home, and you've got to try and manage the project still going ahead with all the subcontractors, all the people at site. So going to, either Skype or Zoom or other, teams to keep that project going. But going from literally to, I'd say, hourly meetings online was just a completely different way of managing the project and the program for me. So having to pivot on the spot and still keep to the deadlines was, the delay consequences were significant, for any substation that went late by a day.
I was going to ask, did they end up delivering on budget?
Yes, because it was a government. You only get so much money from the government, right? So you've got to spend it where you can do. So and the fair play to some of the internal government departments. They were still holding us to account. They were still saying, you've got to, you still got to deliver on time. And you try and put variations or extensions of time in, they just go, no, sorry. Certainly after the 12 months in of COVID, like, you should be well versed to this. You're not getting away with it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes sense. Julie or Mark, did you have an example and how you pivoted or seen a big pivot, even on a smaller project or program?
I've got a small one.
Yeah.
We were working on a strategy project around client service, and it was very successful. We actually ended up calling it In Your Shoes because it was about walking in the client's shoes. It was a very successful program. It ran for 2 years. Then all of a sudden, we probably had a year to go. New CEO came in, strategy refresh at the firm, and then the project team was wondering, okay, what happens now, or where do we fit in? So we really had to pause for a minute, realign to the new strategy. So in the new strategy, there was a pillar called clients and markets, and we went and we approached the stakeholders, and we said, we've been running this great program. Do you think it would fall under this strategy? And if it does, we're happy to hand it over to you. And so that worked really well, that approach. We explained to them what we had done. We handed over the collateral, and then they continued elements of it, not all of it, but elements of it under this new strategy and direction that they were running. So just an example of a small one. It happens sometimes in firms, mid-flight of a project, strategy changes, and it takes courage sometimes to stop, evaluate, see if it's still relevant, and continue or not.
Back to decision making. It's exactly what Maria was speaking about in our earlier presentation, making decisions. So that's a really good point. Julie?
Yeah, and I've got a similar one too, because what you're saying too there, Mark, is about the sponsorship change. So, finding, because we're still trying to deliver a benefit, whatever that is, to the organisation. And just because someone's gone and there's a new, head there, we still need to be able to do that. My one, similar, I was working on a project and we had an executive who was exited. So the sponsor was, one day they were there and then literally the next day they weren't there anymore. That changed, and first of all, it sent a shiver of fear across the group because you had a whole group of consultants in there. So of course, people were very anxious, and then so that fear. So about the fear-based decision. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Same sort of thing as you, Mark. It had to be, when I say it, as a collective, the group had to say, you know what? Stop. Take hold. We still need to have this a transformational piece of work. And what happened was there was a new CEO that was brought in, new MD that was brought in, same sort of thing. Let's do a reset. Is that strategy fit for purpose? Yes. We're going to do a pivot. So it was driven absolutely from the executive. But as we know, that's who we were delivering to anyway. So it wasn't up to us to say it's all changed, but we had to adapt and do a very similar thing to what Mark's saying and hand it over to a new sponsor with those lessons learned, and for them to take that on, the work we've done so far, and move on with it.
It's a good call out. We talked about sponsors at the start of the day. So again, it's coming full circle for me now. Vladimir, I wanted to ask you a slightly adjusted version of this question. Thinking about the students that you work with, and you've been training a lot of people in your university with project management, one of the things that students don't generally have is opportunities for experiences. So a lot of our panelists have been through the hard runs in their careers and learnt the hard way. How do students that are starting off in their careers, what are the ways that either the university is helping them to gain that experience so they can learn these sorts of lessons or insights? Just on mute, Vladimir, just to unmute yourself.
Sorry.
Perfect.
So one of the ways that I have designed the course is that they do a mock-up proposal. So they spend about 8 weeks writing their proposals. The first 7 weeks is all theory. I'm there, I teach them the theory, and then they, with all those tools, they go and do their proposal with my coaching, of course. And they have to write a diary in the process of doing their proposal, and they also they have to communicate with each other. So they have to set up their own systems of communication and what have you. They hand in their written, and then a month later they have an oral exam. And the things that they reveal in the oral exam are, incredible in the sense of the learning that they get. So I've had students dealing with things like illness. That's very well. That's one thing. So if the teams are made up of 3 students, and if one of them falls ill, then they have to reset. They have to quickly reevaluate what they have to do and how they have to do it. similar. There's other problems. Sometimes one student may not deliver as expected. There's students who have gone incognito, and mid-semester, and so I tell them straight away, when in classes, I tell them that problems that they can deal with inside the team. I give them an escalation scale. So problems that they can deal with themselves, they have to handle there. But if there is something that they can't handle, then to escalate to me. And they do use it. They do use the escalation. They come to me. They tell me, we've had this problem. We've talked to this student, and he or she's not coming. And then they adjust. I tell them what the options are. And of course, in the oral exam, the questions are usually to do with, okay, so I read in your diary that this problem arose. How do you deal with that? How do you deal? And the answers are very, like I said to you, very revelatory. How they deal with problems at this early stage. Sometimes the ones that are very clever or very quick, they know what the problem is. But I've had students who have cried. I remember this student who thought that what she had to do as a project manager, because she was the project coordinator. I give them roles. Each one has a role.
Like simulated project management.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and this student who is from it's not from it's from a background that where they have a strong hierarchy. And she thought that as a project coordinator, she had to know everything before everyone else, and so she had to lead the team through her leadership, but that she was being ahead, and she ran into problems with the team. And I said to her, she was crying because she thought that her role was one. But in reality, it was something else, and we only discovered in the exam that this was the case. It was, these are the sorts of learnings.
Best thing for real life, because that happens all the time, doesn't it? Where you have people, PMs are sick and
not the crying.
Sometimes
the crying.
The
crying in private. The crying in private.
Exactly. We're definitely not writing it down. Yeah. Actually, that's a really good segue to let's be honest and raw about this. What's the biggest mistake we've ever intentionally or unintentionally made, maybe early on in our career? I'll start off. I'll give a quick example. It doesn't have to be, you didn't have to sync the project or the company, but I remember my first time taking meeting minutes when I was a project administrator in my first, 1 or 2 years of experience. The program director said, well, we need you to take the meeting minutes. And I remember it was a 30-minute meeting, and afterwards I'd have written 8 pages of every single thing that every single person said, not knowing what meeting minutes were. And I just remember he was like, that's not meeting minutes. So I had to go and educate myself. But does anyone else want to share maybe a career mistake that they've experienced? And don't be shy. Mark, do you have one? You're smiling. I'm guessing you've got a good one.
I've got one, and it was when I was quite junior, actually. Just before I became a project manager. If everyone's heard of Big Brother and Idol and all those voting shows, I used to work for a company that we used to tabulate the statistics. So on the voting night, I used to have Ernst & Young standing behind me. The lines closed. We check the data. We verify who the contestant is to be evicted. We tell someone, they are on the phone to the producer. The producer whispers it in the ear of Gretel on stage, and then they announce it. So it was extremely high pressure. And one night we made a mistake in tabulating the results.
You voted out the wrong person.
The wrong person got voted out on national TV. Probably after the announcement got made, about 10 minutes later, I turned to someone. I said, I've done some more checks. I think there's a problem here. They were on the phone to the CEO or the MD. We've got a problem. Everyone came into the office. It was probably like 11 o'clock at night by this time. Anyway, we basically, what I learned out of that whole incident was telling the truth. So we told the truth to the production company. They then used that in a big kind of media campaign to say the wrong we've got the wrong person's been voting out. We're doing this and we're bringing back this contestant, and they turned it into something really positive for them for ratings. But I had a lot of people that week asking me, because they knew I worked for that company, are you still in your job?
Mark, you didn't have anything to do with the Oscars, did you?
No. But it was really just what I learned. It's just to tell the truth and be honest, and it works itself out, one way or another.
100%.
How's your reporting going now, Mark?
Watermelon project?
More details about code. We basically copied the code for another contestant, and we didn't change the ID. So all the votes were going to one person instead of a new contestant. So anyway, great story to tell.
Thank you for sharing. That was really interesting.
Do we need to worry now that you're the judge?
No. It's not reality TV.
Oh, goodness. I know Big Brother's coming back. I don't watch it, but now I feel like I'm enthralled with this story. But thank you for sharing, Mark. Dave, did you have a mistake in your career?
Oh, me?
Dave?
Sorry.
Oh. Sorry, Dave. I would just Dave, yeah?
Yeah, it was when I was a junior back in the UK. I was project engineer for a company that overhauled power stations. And we got a week. We'd just set up site, getting everybody on site, and I had a call off the site manager asking me where the tools were for the outage, and I'd forgot the tools. Of all the things that I needed to remember, right? And I just had a sheer panic going through me, going, my God. And I had to front up to the customer as well and tell them that I'd made a mistake. But fortunately, we had 3 other projects going on in the UK at the same time on similar power stations. So we were able to beg, steal and borrow equipment as they finished it. So again, coming back to what Mark was saying is, you can make mistakes, right? But own up to it, take accountability, try and do the right thing. For me, that was very much, I was delivery boy, going backwards and forwards between the power stations at the time, exchanging the tools around and things like that. So it's something that I never forgot, and I've never done since, thankfully.
Thanks, Dave, for sharing. Before I move on, Julie or Vladimir, did you want to throw anything in?
Oh, I make mistakes all the time, and I'm not a junior. And I could sit, and I just, because I guess everyone else that's on the call that's aspiring to get to leadership positions.
Yes.
The thing is, you can make mistakes, and sometimes you can't get that time back. So I think, to agree with everyone else, yes, there's always positives. Tell the truth, like own up, because issues don't go away anywhere. But for me, talk to anyone that's in my team and ask them about the mistakes Julie makes, and they'll all go, oh, well, X, Y, Z, Z. And so far too many to mention, and I'm pretty sure I'll make one tomorrow and probably next week. But you know what? Learn by them, and what they say, you don't do the same one. So every day I'll do a new one. The impact that mightn't be quite as massive, but I just want to be open and transparent with everyone, because no one's perfect.
Yeah.
And it's not a perfect practice, project management. Yes. There's so many variables. So be a bit kind to yourself and go, made a mistake, own it, bang, I can fix it. And that's fine.
I love that. I think I like your honesty, and you're right. We all make mistakes, not just when we're young, but I like how we all started with when we were young. So you called us out on our bluff. Thanks, Julie. I'm sure Mark, Dave, and I just made those mistakes last week, but thanks for telling everyone our secrets. No, thank you for sharing that. I wanted to move into the big debate, the elephant in the room. Project management methodologies. So methodologies continue to evolve. We can call them whatever we want to call them. Agile-based methodologies. People will call waterfall a methodology. There's so many, and they're just everywhere. And I'm just kind of keen to see, in your views, what are the most notable trends or changes that you've observed in project management practices in the most recent years? I might start with you, Vlad. What are you seeing in terms of what, from an educational perspective, the insights that you are sharing in the universities with these students going into project management as a career? Is there a specific methodology that you are training and teaching in, or are you sort of giving them more of a broad overview of what's out there?
Yeah, I'm giving them a broad overview. I don't want them to marry to a single methodology just yet. I want them to be open, also because when they end up working for companies or NGOs or governments, they learn the new. What I'd like them to learn is the main components that we can expect from all the methodologies. The stakeholder relationships, the risk management, the management of time, the management of cost, all of these things. What they get is a little package that can be then applied or formalized, in one of the more renowned methodologies. Sometimes they ask me, they after they've graduated, they send me an email and say, "Oh, Vlad, which one's the best one? So which methodology is the best one?" And I said, well, I usually say, "What's your company using?" And if they want to go on without, just to prepare, then I ask them, what are you planning to apply it in? So, I give them a couple of options. But yeah, I don't marry them to a single methodology.
It's good to know that, because it sounds like you're focusing on the what, not the how. The how varies company to company. So yeah, I really like that. Mark or Julie, Dave, is there anything specific you wanted to call out in terms of what you're seeing in companies you've worked in, or I guess what you're hearing in that debate, and any practical insights you can share?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to go. I think what we've seen, and you'll see this, Fatimah, with the work that we've been doing together, that we get a lot of customers with a mindset of, when you come in, this is what we want. We want this delivery methodology. We want that delivery methodology. And when we actually get in there and speak to them and say, look, it's about how. It's not necessarily about the methodology. You've got the basics still need to be done. It doesn't matter whether it's agile or whether it's a waterfall or anything like that. But surprisingly, what a lot of them will see is that there's just a different way of approaching it, right? And really giving them something that is needed for their organization, not just a cookie cutter from what they've seen in on LinkedIn, or from their search on Google. Our competitor down the road is using this kind of methodology. This is what we want, and it just doesn't work. It's understanding that the culture, the behaviour, and the maturity of the organisation to say what they want to do, and leading them then down that path of. Sometimes it's just easier to start off simple.
100%.
Yeah, for mine, you go, Mark. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. For mine, I worked in, very fortunate to have worked in a few different types of industries, and where the methodology is, it's exactly that thing. Like someone's read Google and gone, I've got an idea, or they've talked to a consultant that's put a certain bent on it, but for them, it's not fit for purpose. So what my observations are is that we aren't actually getting I'll say a global trend, or a trend in the areas that I've been involved with, to go down one set path. And there's more and more hybrid. There's a bit of, let's get a bit from here. So, someone will say, oh, no, I really like the idea of the concepts, some of the concepts of agile, and they'll talk about things like they like, say, having storyboards and Kanbans and stand-up. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to have stage gates. Mm-hmm. They won't necessarily have retros because it doesn't suit them. So it's really, my observations are that the more things change, the more they say the same. People want to make their own thing and have their own cottage industries. And I haven't yet come across something to say, oh, look, we've got a trend and it's across the board. Everyone's doing it this way.
Well said. I agree. We all nodded along like, yep, we've heard that before. Mark, did you want to add something?
I was just going to say 100% agree. I think the biggest trend, and I often talk to it with my team, is about being agile with a little a. And I talk to the team about, we've got a toolkit, and we reach into that toolkit. We assess that project or that piece of work, and we see what it needs. And we pull out of that toolkit what we need. And it could be, as Julie said, a bit of waterfall, maybe during requirements, then a bit of agile with a capital A during development, because the IT teams, running an agile methodology. And we just have to be agile with a little a in our approach, find what that needs and apply it. And often, as David and Julie have both said, it's a mixture sometimes of a bit of everything, but it's what that piece of work and project needs to get done.
Well said. Thank you, Mark, for sharing. And I think that makes sense. There's pragmatic approaches to these things. And I have seldom seen in like 20 years anyone really who's either one or the other. Everyone that says they're agile is actually a mixture of waterfall and other agile-based methods. Those that say they're waterfall probably do take some of the principles of agile and apply them. So I think it's hybrid all the way. We just have to admit that. And I think someone said it earlier, do what's right for the company that you're in at the time, and be flexible. So that's a good wrap up for that one. Just to close out our session today, I want to go around the room and I want you to each think of something that you can share that will help our viewers today to basically, whether they're starting out in their project management career or maybe further along in their project management or PMO career, maybe a piece of advice that you would like to recommend that you've personally taken with you or learned from someone else in your career, a piece of advice that you think will be useful as a practical takeaway before we wrap up our call today. And I'm going to put Julie on the spot, and I'm going to go Julie first.
Get it in writing. That's what I got to say. Everyone's laughing. Hashtag quote that one. Get it in writing, because it's it's like, oh yeah, I had this conversation. Like I'm doing this conversation with someone, and they thought that'd be okay, and then 3 months later, it's not okay.
No one remembers it. No one remembers it. Is that why you asked your manager the same question twice? I saw her in the chat.
Absolutely.
Double checking.
Double check. That's it for me. Full stop.
Thank you, Dave.
Communication. Absolutely, communication. That for me is the cornerstone of any good project manager. If you know how to communicate and learn a good art of communication, you're going to save yourself a whole lot of bother later on. Just clear, concise communication, how you deal with your stakeholders.
100%. Mark?
We run like a really simple PM 101 for some business units. And it's just a 1 hour session, and we call out 5 or 6 really key things, and it just goes to the basics of project management. clear scope and requirements. Goes to Julie's point about writing it down, define roles and responsibilities, have some type of meeting cadence, so you're able to get the team together, have a timeline with some milestones and with owners against those tasks. Find out what your budget is. Ask that question if no one gives you a budget to find out. And lastly, celebrate success, especially for long projects. Make sure you do that. It keeps the team motivated and moving.
Celebrate. I love that one. Often we forget that we don't actually really celebrate even the little micro wins along the way. So I think that's a really good call out. And then Vladimir?
I'll echo Mark on that one. It's necessary, I think, to establish a culture of celebration after, little successes and big wins. I think we just go from one project to the next without thinking. But for those who are just starting, I'll repeat what David said: communication. But I would add also that we need to try to learn a little bit of emotional intelligence. I think that a manager can, write something and mean something completely different. And I think that there is so much behind not just the words, but also the written communication. So I think if we learn a little bit of what people mean, through their words, it's probably a good thing. So acquire some emotional intelligence if you don't have it. It will help you not just with work, but with everything else.
Oh, good. Thank you so much for that. Well, I just want to thank all of you for being part of the panel today. It's been a really insightful session. Hopefully, from all the comments we've seen, everybody got the value that I expected that they would get. Thank you for giving your time and being part of this. Hope you have a great rest of the event, watching in and tuning into all the other sessions. So, Vladimir, Dave, Mark, and Julie, thank you so much for being part of this.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amazing. Thanks, guys. We are now at the 4:30 p.m. in Melbourne time, break time. We've got a 15-minute break, and then in 15 minutes from now, we will be moving on to our last main speaker, Kathy Burkich, who's actually a very well-known speaker who will be talking to us about leading with mindfulness, and she's based in Australia. So be sure during the break to check out the vendor booths, go and visit them there. Go to the networking spaces that you were at the beginning, or join one of the tables and have a bit of a chit chat about anything that you've learned today, and also share on social media using the hashtag TPL conference. Otherwise, we will see you all in about 15 minutes time for the next session. Thank you
so much for listening to this podcast. Please share this with someone or rate it if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to follow us on social media, and to stay up to date with all things Agile ideas, go to our website www.agilemanagementoffice.com. I hope you've been able to learn, feel, or be inspired today. Until next time, what's your Agile idea?